There are five main client acquisition issues that I see in pretty much every company that I've worked with and consulted with that is in the sub $5 million a year range. And in this video, I want to walk through each of them. I want to talk through why these issues happen and what you can do about it. So I'm going to go ahead, share my screen, and let's dive in. So first and foremost, if we're starting at the top of the funnel here, and just to preface before diving into this, I don't like to think of things in terms of sales teams and marketing teams. I view client acquisition as a whole, sales and marketing as one kind of holistic ecosystem. And I think that is a huge problem I see in a lot of these companies is that everyone's operating in these kind of siloed areas instead of thinking about the big picture. So if you're a CMO or you're looking to hire a CMO, I highly recommend having someone who kind of understands both sales and marketing, sees client acquisition holistically from end to end. So with that out of the way, let's talk about each of these. First issue we run into is lead volume and lead quality issues. So this is pure marketing. If we're running into issues with not having enough calls on the calendar, your salespeople waking up in the morning and they're looking at an empty calendar, or they're looking at one or two calls on the calendar. That's a problem. If you're trying to hit your revenue goals and you don't have the call volume in order to hit those numbers, it's impossible to do so. Same with lead quality. If you are selling marketing agency services for roofers and everyone on your calendar is a financial advisor or a realtor, there's not really much your salespeople can do there. So first and foremost, we need to fix lead quality, lead volume on the marketing side. So a lot of issues, in my opinion, I can talk for the next 10 hours on lead quality and lead volume, but in my opinion, a lot of this comes down to ads and VSLs. And in addition to that, also the DQing process from your setter team. So if you're dealing with a lot of issues with lead quality, I'd say a lot of times that comes down to, your ads are not doing enough of a good job to DQ the wrong people. You need to be able to kind of disqualify people in your ads. You want to speak to the problems of your market specifically. If you're running like a really general ad, a lot of times, a lot of my clients sell to like the biz op market, business opportunity market, and they'll have leads on their ads. They'll just say like, okay, want to make passive income. Like, okay, it's hard to, that could be anyone. Who doesn't want passive income? There's no specificity there whatsoever. You're not going to get solid lead quality if you have these really generalized ads. So you need to be able to speak to specific problems, pain points of your market. In terms of lead volume, I think a lot of that comes down to not knowing your numbers. Lead volume is really just a function of knowing your numbers. If you need 100 calls on your calendar, say on a weekly basis, just reverse engineer the numbers. How much are you paying per booked call on Facebook ads? If you are paying $200 per call, and you want to get 100 calls on the calendar, whatever 100 times 200 is, 20,000, whatever that is, I suck at math. You need to spend that amount on Facebook. Or, let's look at other channels. How many calls on average do you book through email? How many calls are you booking through YouTube, IG organic? Total those numbers up. Like, you should be able to reverse engineer the numbers so that you're hitting your lead volume goals. Now, obviously, you're going to have days where Facebook ads kind of shit the bed and you're not hitting the numbers you want. But as a whole, like, lead volume is a function of knowing your numbers, in my opinion, and being willing to spend that amount in order to hit those numbers. So that's really the first place I want to start here. Lead quality, lead volume. I guess that's more of two things here. Okay, those are the main issues I see on marketing. So let's move on more so to sales. So next, I deal with this, as a CMO, I deal with this every day, and it's super annoying. But a lot of times, there's a lot of science behind this. There's a lot of data behind backing this up. But if you just simply call the leads efficiently, your chances of getting people on calls are astronomically higher. A lot of times I'll deal with these kind of lazy setters or lazy SDRs who, the call comes in and they're calling 3 hours later, or they're calling the next morning. And it's like, that's just not good enough. I've worked in, yes, I do marketing for the most part now, but I've worked in sales for years. I've closed over $8 million over the phone. So I have a lot of experience with this. And if you're just waiting and waiting and waiting to call the leads, it's not going to work. You need to be on it with these, speed to lead, calling sub 5 minutes. It's not hard. If your setters aren't doing it, you need to either lay down the hammer with them or, honestly just fire them, find new ones, and enforce it from day one, because this is just kind of a non-negotiable. Speed to lead is very important. So I like to do this. I'll usually create two channels. So a new opt-ins channel in Slack. So just set up a basic, basic Zap or Integromat, whatever you want to use for your tech side. Zap all the new opt-ins into a Slack channel, and then zap all the new direct bookings from your VSL or whatever it is into a Slack channel as well. So the second those new opt-ins come in, you want to have your setters claiming them and marking down that they've called them. That way you as the business owner have clear visibility and timestamps into how fast they're calling. If your setters are not calling within those 5 minutes, like you need to fix that. This is very simple. I think it's mainly a cultural issue within companies. If you can fix that, this will put a lot of money into your pocket. So calling the leads fast, watching the timestamps, that moves on to the second issue related to sales, is setters not confirming calls. So one of the biggest issues in kind of the whole online business world right now is show rates on sales teams. A lot of my clients have just sort of accepted 50% show rate on their team, and it's, they're not happy about it, but it is what it is. I personally, when I was a salesperson, I did not accept this. That was a lot of commissions lost out for me if half of my calls were not showing up. It's pretty much as simple, in my opinion, as nailing that initial discovery, making sure that when the setters are calling ASAP, you're actually running a good discovery, and B, confirming the call. I always tell setters that I manage, you need to pick up the phone, call every single, lead on the calendar that's booked with your closers or your AEs, and get a verbal confirmation from them that they are going to show up. It's very rare in my experience as a former salesperson that you get a verbal confirmation day of from someone that they're showing up and that they don't show up. So calling, for example, in the mornings when I was a setter, I would wake up, all the calendars I was managing, I just go through one by one, rip through each one, call them, text them. If they don't pick up and they don't respond to a text, I will call them again before the call, maybe 2 hours later, whatever it is. Either way, I'm getting a verbal confirmation from them that they're going to show up. And if they don't have that verbal confirmation, I pull the call from the calendar and try to do a same-day booking so that the closer doesn't have issues related to not having calls in the calendar. So either pull them, go for the same-day booking. But setters need to be confirming these calls. A lot of people don't like to get on their setters about confirming calls, and they're too nice to setters about these things. But these two things, like if you can just nail these, get your setters calling leads fast and confirming calls, like that fixes an enormous amount of problems. I promise you, if you just enforce this on your team, it will make you a lot of money. So confirm the calls. It can be as simple as, hi, Mr. Prospect, Damon here. I'm the closer's assistant. I see you're scheduled in for today at 1 o'clock. Is that time good to go on your end? Cool. Drop me a message afterwards letting me know how it goes. Super simple. Takes 15 seconds. Rip through, make 8 of those calls or 16, however many they're managing. Very simple. Not a lot of people do this, but if they would, they'd be a lot more profitable. Okay, next. So let's move on to closers. So closers can't close. This is a pretty easy problem to diagnose if you already have established closers who have gotten results for you in the past. If you don't have this, it's a little bit harder because you don't know if maybe it's a marketing problem, maybe it's a salesperson problem. Tough to say. If you have, I've had deals where, we've got a closer on board for 2 years. They've closed millions of dollars worth of deals for us and they go into a rut. in that case, I know pretty clearly, like, okay, on the marketing side, something's going wrong. If this guy who routinely closed 30% of his calls is somehow plummeting to 10%, like, he's got a track record, he's got history. I know that I'm doing something wrong with the funnels, whatever it is, the ads are taking a dive, so I've got to make some changes. But a lot of cases too, if someone's new on a sales team and they're not closing, um, that's it's a little bit tough to diagnose the problem. And if you're trying to fix the wrong problem, that's not a good place to be. Also, a lot of costs associated with this. So I like to take this approach. Typically, for clients of mine, when we're hiring salespeople, I always like to hire two at one time and kind of pit them against each other. Salespeople love competition, in my opinion, and if they don't, they probably shouldn't be salespeople. So hire two salespeople at a time and see who closes higher. Make sure they're hitting like specific benchmarks you hit. I think they should at least be getting 25% deals across the finish line. So I'm not going to divert this video into a whole conversation about sales teams, sales team management. That's not really my forte. If you're looking for someone to help out with that, highly recommend talking to Cole Gordon's team over at Sales Team Accelerator. In my opinion, they're one of the best in the game when it comes to consulting for placing sales reps. So if you want to chat with their team, let me know. I can drop you an email, connect you guys. So lastly, follow-up game sucks. As a salesperson, it's just one of those things. A lot of deals are not going to go in the first call, depending on what kind of price point you're selling at. Especially if you're selling, say, $10,000 to $30,000 price points. If you're expecting people to just like boom close like 30 minutes in, no matter how good you are, it's just nature of the game. A lot of people are not going to close on that first call, and you need to be dialed in on your follow-up game. So I think I put a lot of this on the setters, and I think it's a closer's job to lead the setters effectively in doing this. But with the amount of money we're spending on the marketing side, if we're banking on closing deals on call number one and not following up with them for months at a time, it's really hard from a profitability standpoint, and also from a kind of like company longevity standpoint. Inevitably you have your up and down months on ads. Some months ads are just trash. Some months, like right now, these next 6 months here, July 2024 through probably January 2025 with the election, ads are just going to be hard. Costs are going to be higher than usual. There's more people than ever advertising, and people are distracted as a whole. People are in an emotional, mental state. So ads are going to be tough these next 6 months. There's no way around that. But if you don't have like your sales team follow-up game really dialed in, then it just makes things infinitely harder for the company as a whole. So what I like to do is just keep a basic like follow-up pipeline. So we have, obviously, in your salespeople have their various pipelines. When I was selling, I'd have an outreach pipeline. Those are the people I'm calling every single day. I'd have a pipeline for calls booked. So that's the people who are on the calendar, who I've already booked, confirmed, whatever it is. Deals closed, obviously, for commissions, but I'd also have a long-term follow-up pipeline. So that's people who, they've taken the call with the AE or the closer, and they haven't gone through. It's not that they're never going to go through. It's just that today it wasn't happening. And I've got to follow up in 30, 60, even 90 days, whatever it is. So I'll just keep them in that pipeline for however long it takes. If I've got to send a couple texts and a couple emails, you should be able to generate a ton of revenue at scale if you're able to just like continually follow up with people. It takes 2 seconds to send an email or a text or even make a quick call. And a lot of people too, it's like you gotta have some empathy here. If you're selling at high price points, a lot of times people just simply don't have the money to make a buying decision on call number one. It's not that they're not interested. It's more so that it's just not the right time. It happens a lot. I'm dealing with a couple deals right now where that's kind of the case, and I'm going to send them an email once a month until they close. And then it'll happen eventually. So that's pretty much it for this today. As a CMO, it's important to stay on top of each of these. Like I said before, I like to view client acquisition holistically. We're not looking at it in terms of, oh, it's marketing's fault, or oh, it's sales' fault, or oh, the copywriter fucked up, or it's the setter's fault. It's like we're a team. We're all a client acquisition team. We're all working towards the same goal of getting deals across the finish line. Um, Everyone's kind of got to work together here, and your CMO's got to be able to see things at a big picture and diagnose these issues. When you have the numbers to back it up, you can see pretty clearly like which one of these there are. For lead, it's supposed to be volume. For lead volume, for example, if you're looking at the average number of leads coming in, let's say you normally have 2,000 leads per month coming in, and 1 month it's 1,500. Like, you fucked up. Or not necessarily you fucked up, but ads have dropped the ball and you didn't compensate for it elsewhere. You should be able to track these numbers. Same with lead quality. I like to do MQL tracking, marketing qualified lead tracking. If our MQL percentage is down for the month, then we know it's a lead quality issue. As far as the setter's not calling fast enough, you can see that as simply as, scrolling through Slack and seeing the timestamps in terms of when they've called. Or go into your CRM, go into HubSpot, whatever it is, look at the timestamps for when the lead opted in towards when they were actually called. I don't think you need some like fancy dashboards or anything. I mean, I know people that can set that up if that's what you're looking for, but you can see very quickly. You don't just scroll through it and see like, are they calling within 5 minutes? Very simple. Same with confirming calls. I would say put this on the closer. The closers should be giving your setters shit if they're not confirming calls. I know when I was a setter, my closers gave me a lot of shit if I didn't confirm calls, and rightfully so. I think it's not hard. You call the leads, hey, are you showing up? Very simple. Close rates, those are easy to track. Follow-up game, I think this is a little bit tougher to track, but you should be keeping some kind of metrics in terms of like how many deals are, what is the deal cycle, basically? Like how long is it taking people to close? You should be able to look through your Hyros account and see, all right, this person opted in yesterday, closed today, versus this person opted in 3 months ago, took a call, didn't close, took a call yesterday, and then closed. And what kind of percentage of those are coming in those first 14 days or so versus which ones are longer term. If you have no deals coming in from long game follow-up, chances are it's not because you have killer salespeople. Chances are it's that your salespeople just aren't following up properly. So that is it for this video. These are the 5 main issues I see that hold a lot of companies back. A lot of companies will plateau, in my experience, right around like $5 million a year because they can't get these issues fixed, versus a lot of companies I've worked with that are hitting, $40, $50 million a year. They've got these down at a higher level of scale and they're just nailing them. None of this is life-changing stuff. I'd say this is all pretty simple, but a lot of times simplicity wins. So hopefully this is helpful. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments.